Sicha we will be learning today is in Likutei Sichos Chelik Chov Gimel, the second Sicha to Chag HaShavuos. It's about Shavuos. The Rebbe starts off like this: the Yontif of Shavuos is Uzgitil from the andere Regolim. The Yontif of Shavuos is different than the other Yom Tovim. They meet with this. Was Hakol made in Ba'atzeres the Binyan Amalachem. That the Negei Shavuos, concerning Shavuos, everyone agrees that you need lochem, and the Rebbe will explain in a moment what that means. My timer, why is it for sure? Everyone agrees that you need lachem, and we'll see in a second, as I said, what it is, because it's Yom Shenitna B'Teirahu. It's the day the Torah was given. And the Rebbe explains what that means. But the other Yom Tovim, concerning other Yom Tovim, is Frana Plukta. There's an argument in Gemara. Siemens ken sich führen in Aneifen von Kudel Hashem oder es muss ein Chetzi lachem. Can you behave in a way that comes completely to Hashem, or it has to be Chetzi lachem? And let me explain the background to this. Concerning Yontif, in one place, B'negei Yontif, which is called Atzeres. The word Atzeres means holding back from working, which is Yontif. So one place it says, B'negei one Yontif, it says Atzeres tia lochem, it should be a Yontif to you. Another place it says Atzeres l'Hashem lekecha, it should be Atzeres to Hashem. Now if it says Atzeres, the Yontif should be to you, that means that you should enjoy it. If it says Atzeres l'Hashem, it means do something Ruchnias for Hashem to enjoy. You enjoy doing something for Hashem, which means in simple words that if it says lochem, it means you shall eat and drink and enjoy yourself on Yontif. That's something that should be for you. When it says Lashem, it means you should do something for Hashem, which means you should learn Torah and daven, etc., etc. Now there is a contradiction. One place it says it should be lochem, which means you should enjoy by eating and drinking, etc., etc. And the other one says it should be Lashem, should be through learning and davening, etc. So there's an argument in Gemara. One opinion says that the pshat in the posuk is the two psukim that we have a choice, an option. You could spend the whole day of Yontiv Lashem, all day daven and learn and don't eat. That's what you could do. Or you could choose Kulei Lachem, all day you should eat and enjoy yourself and not spend much time on davening and learning. Another opinion says no. Since there are these two psukim, you have to divide it in half. Every yontif, chetzi Hashem and chetzi lachem. Half should be to Hashem, so part of the day should be learning and davening and doing yonim ruchniim, and the other half of the day should be doing gashmias to enjoy yourself. So there's a machlekes here which way it is. And that's what the Rebbe says here. There's a pluk that sime ken sich führen an Eifen von Kudel Hashem oder es muss an chetzi lachem. There's an argument. Can you on Yontif behave in a way that you shouldn't eat at all? So one opinion says you could choose to have Kulil Hashem a whole day to serve Hashem Beruchnias. Or in other words, or must you have part of the day Lochem that you should have to eat? So other Yom Tovim, there's an argument. By Shavuos and Allah made the Binyan Amalachem. By Shavuos, everyone agrees that you must fulfill the Lochem, which means you must fulfill the eating and drinking, and your body should enjoy it. And it quotes from the Lashon of Rashi, that means you should be happy on the day, with eating and drinking. Laharis, what's the reason? So the Gemara used the Lashon because it's Yom Shenitna B'Teirahu, it's the day the Torah was given. And the Lashon of Rashi is Sheneyach HaMakubal Yom Zeli Yisrael Shenitna Torah. You have to show, Laharis, to show that this day is acceptable to you, and you like it, you enjoyed this day, because it's the day that Hashem gave the Torah, so which means you enjoy the Torah, you appreciate the fact that Hashem gave the Torah, and therefore you have to eat and drink and enjoy yourself. And even according to the way we paskin, as by Allah Yomim Tevim Muzayin Chetzi Lachem, every yontif has to be half to you. In other words, we don't paskin like the opinion that you could choose or Kulei Hashem or Kulei Lachem. You could choose to have a whole day to Hashem and you don't have to eat. We don't paskin like that. We paskin that every yontif Chetzi Hashem, Chetzi Lachem has to be half to the Eibush and half to you. So you must eat every yontif. Midav Praven, Simchas Yontif, B'Maichel. The way to show that you're enjoying the yontif, you're happy with the yontif, is by eating and drinking. So La Alocha, every yontif, not only Shavuos, you have to eat. There's still a difference between Shavuos and the other Yom Tovim. By Shar Yom Tovim and Shabbos, by other Yom Tovim and Shabbos, is the din is I'm a mek fast na tainas cholim. You're allowed to fast at tainas cholim, which means if you had a bad dream, and it says if you have a bad dream and you're afraid that maybe this shows that something bad will happen to you. So the eighth is what you should do is you should fast. But the only thing is, it only works if you fast that same day. If at night you had a dream, that next day you have to fast. So if you had a dream on Thursday, you have to fast. Wednesday night, let's say, you have to fast on Thursday. If you fast a day later, it doesn't work. What happens if you had a bad dream Friday night, Shabbos, Friday night? So the din is that you're allowed to fast at Tainas Cholam. That's called a Tainas Cholam, a fast, because of the dream. For Mafa Pias is Doder Chiv Neinek Shabbos v'Yontiv. Even though there is a din that you have to enjoy Shabbos and Yontiv, so why are you allowed to fast? But since as nafshi agume al chaloime, because since a person feels bad for the dream, in kenatainis or enagle. So when you fast and it makes you feel better, that is a pleasure. So therefore, you're allowed to fast because by doing that, you have a pleasure. When it comes to Shavuos, if you bald that tzorich lachabel is meir bei. And Shavuos, since you have to eat and you have to be happy, because you have to show that day that you're happy, you accept, and you enjoy the fact that the Eibush gave us a Torah. Torah nit fasten katainas cholum. So on Shavuos, you're not allowed to fast at tainas cholum. Those haste, this means like this. As b'chag Shavuos ifaran on Shavuos, there is nit nor the chiyuv for neinik b'chal. Not only generally you have to enjoy, but meile kendo zayin dur the meinik for tainas cholum. But meile, if the whole din would be on Shavuos, like any other yontiv that you have to enjoy, you should be able to fast at tainas cholum because you're enjoying fasting because you feel that'll help you. That whatever the dream means won't happen to you, so you enjoy it. But here it doesn't work. You can't fast. It shows that on Shavuos not only do you have to enjoy, nor achiyu v'achile, you must eat. Tzorich lechel, you have to eat. You have to eat to show that it's acceptable. The Torah is acceptable. You appreciate the Torah. That's why you have to eat. So we see that even the halacha that every yontif you have to eat, there's still a difference between Shavuos and other yontif. Other yom tevim you're allowed to fast a tainas cholam, and Shavuos you're not allowed to fast a tainas cholam, even though you enjoy the tainas cholam. But still on Shavuos there's a din of eating. In Flugis is a dover tamua. At first glance, the Rebbe says this is a strange thing. The me'adim Pesach and Sukkot is eine zecher biketz chasodim gashmin. The Yom Tevim of Pesach and Sukkot is to remember. It's because that we celebrate that Hashem gave us dit chesed to us, kindness, physical kindness. The chaydos for Shibud Mitzrayim bePesach. Concerning Pesach, we celebrate that we went out of the Shibud of the work, hard labor that we had in Mitzrayim. Sukkot is Besukkos is Shaftis Yisrael, but Eretz Mitzrayim. We celebrate Sukkos because when we went out of Mitzrayim, they put us into Sukkos, which means the Anane Yakovet, that he put us under clouds. She kifam behem, he surrounded us with clouds. Let's sail for shade. The Bal Yakim and Shad of Hashem, that the winds and the sun should not hurt them. So it's also a physical chesed, kindness Hashem did to us. Und von deswegen Kempas ist ein Afal, wenn sie hier wenig wird ausgeführt, nicht durch Hasud Gashmis. Nevertheless, it's a possibility that when you celebrate these days, it should be celebrated not through a physical thing, even though you're celebrating something because of a physical kindness Hashem did to us. You could celebrate it through a different way, not through eating. You could celebrate to a tainis. If that's the day that is the tainis cholam, you could celebrate the pleasure of the yontif, of thanking Hashem for the physical kindness He did to us. You could do it through not eating. Davke by Chag Shavuos and Davke by Shavuos, which is Yom Shnitne B'Teire. The whole specialty of Shavuos is the day the Torah was given. Which is in ganzen Aninya from Chesed Ruchni. It's completely a spiritual kindness. And here the din is Muz Einik V'Simchas Yontav Zayin Alamol Verbunden Davke mit Achil Gashmis. So the way to celebrate and to enjoy and be happy on the Yontav has to be always. Even in a case where you're able to, when you want to fast, and that will be a pleasure to you, it's not enough. The way to celebrate Shavuos, which was a day the Torah was given something ruchni, we have to do it through achila gashmis, through a physical eating. Umetor der fahren nit fasten at tainas cholam. That's why you're not allowed to fast at tainas cholam. Mahai time agufe. And what's the reason why you can't fast? Violence is nitne b'Torah, because the Torah was given. So it's like two details to the question. One detail is, why is it that on the day that we're thanking Hashem for something spiritual, we have to eat? And then the question is even more. What is the reason why we have to eat and we can't fast in any shape, any form? Because the Torah was given. As if saying that because it's a day that we have to thank Hashem for something spiritual, that is the reason why we have to eat, which is Gashminis. That's a strange thing. So verstehen das Rebbe, to understand this, that from free and mavayas and them kolos, they can gather from free, einig Shabbos, Yontif. In order to understand this, we have to first explain the general idea. What is this idea that on Shabbos and Yom Tov you have to have pleasure? You have to enjoy Shabbos and Yom Tov. And we said before, normally you enjoy it. Like it says, the Pasuk says, "V'karosah l'Shabbos einik," you should call pleasure on Shabbos. How do you do the pleasure? So the Gemara says, through eating. What is the pshat? That the enjoyment of Shabbos and Yom Tov, that there's an obligation to enjoy it, and the way it is set up is through eating. So the Rebbe explains it. The main way, the din is that you enjoy Shabbos and Yom Tov is through eating and drinking. What's the far as the din? That's the reason for the din. That even though you're allowed to fast a tainas cholam, a Shabbos Yom Tov, as we said before, it's true. Von deswegen, still, der was hat gefasst, the one that did fast a tainas cholam, darf noch am fasten, not noch dem fasten, 8 tainas bechel, she is Schapiro. He has to fast that he should be forgiven for what he did that he fasted on Shabbos or Yom Tov. In other words, we allowed him to do it, but it's still not the best. And therefore, he did something that's not. We allowed him to do something not so great. But because he did something that's not really, really 100%, he has to do tshuva and get forgiveness for doing that. So he should fast another day in the week, that Hashem should forgive him for the aveda he did for fasting. By mitzayin tainas cholim, like it says in Shulchan Aruch, because he fasted at tainas cholim, Shabbos Yom Tov, bittul ikesh einik Shabbos. He was mavatal. He went against the main way of einik Shabbos. So even though we gave the reason why he's allowed to, because that itself is an einik, nevertheless, that's not the iker einik. So he's allowed to do it because it's not going against Einik Shabbos, because he has Einik, enjoys fasting if it's for a tainas cholam, but at the same time, it's going against the main way Chachamim set up, the Torah set up, that he has to show Einik Shabbos. Nochmer goes further. That heter to fasten Shabbos Yom Tov is not about tainas cholam. The fact that you're allowed to fast on Shabbos Yom Tov is only by a tainas cholam. If you're fasting, you fast because you had a dream. Or there or by somebody or somebody, if he eats, it'll hurt him, give him pain. That's a possibility. Then you're allowed to fast. Or but atainas for Sayyid will fast until what happens if a person wants to fast on Shabbos or Yom Tov for a different reason? For instance, fasting is a form you show your tshuva, and it's a form of expressing your chassidus, your frumkat, your Yerushalayim. And somebody wants to fast on Shabbos because that's the way he expresses his tshuva and chassidus. And he enjoys fasting because he wants to do it. He's osir, nevertheless is osir. You're not allowed to. It's a lotion in Al Rebbe Shulchan Aruch, that you're not allowed to change the pleasure that the Chachamim established, that you have to. He said you have to eat 3 meals on Shabbos. So you have to eat on Shabbos, and that's the way you get pleasure. You cannot exchange that by einig achar in a different pleasure, which doesn't have to be on Shabbos. If you want to show your tshuva, everything, fast a different day. See, a tainas cholim, you can't change. Tainas cholim, it only works if it's on that day. So there they said, we're allowed to do it. And other things and also if it hurts you, but other reasons, good reasons, and gives you pleasure, you're not allowed to. Why? Because the main pleasure still remains eating. That's the main pleasure the way you enjoy Shabbos. So now we have to understand. Since we said that there's no din that you have to eat. There's a din of pleasure. And we said you have pleasure through eating. But since the main thing is not the eating itself, nor blaze to live the main it's only because that gives you enjoyment. Mitzvah to the Shabbos. He again quotes from Alter Rebbe Shulchan Aruch. It says the mitzvah of eating the meals on Shabbos is so because of having pleasure. But it's not the mitzvah of eating. The mitzvah is pleasure, and the eating is because that gives you pleasure. So much so that we consider the mitzvah of Einik Shabbos as a mitzvah that depends on every single person individual, on the way people feel. It depends on the mindset of a person. This, as we see, at tainas cholim you could fast. Why? Because you enjoy it. That means that it's not a set thing. It's everyone according to his enjoyment. So if that's what the union of eating Shabbos and Yom Tov is because it's pleasure, but pleasure is something that depends on you. Why did the Chacham set up that? How do you have to do the pleasure? Is durch eating and drinking. And you're not allowed to exchange the pleasure the Chacham is set for a different pleasure. Why? There shouldn't have been a condition and a set thing for everybody. No, jeder soll mekayem sein mitzvah sein mit dem was is davon misanig. Everyone should fulfill it according to the way he feels the pleasure, what the pleasure for him is. Why did Lechatchila say that it has to be achila and shtiya? And the Rebbe in the Order 20 gives an example. There's a mitzvah of simcha and yontiv. Now there's a mitzvah the way a man fulfills his mitzvah of simcha, and that is time at the Beis Hamikdash to bring in a korban. Nowadays it's through drinking wine and eating regular meat as a zeicher to the meat of the korbanos. And women and children is a different way. The Rambam says you could fulfill the mitzvah simchas yontiv, buying them nice clothes. So we see there's a mitzvah simchas yontiv and there's different ways. So the same thing should be on Shabbos, that if there would be an essential mitzvah to eat, it's on its own, good, that's the din. But if the emes, it's no such din as eating. The din is to have pleasure. Chachamim said most pleasure is through eating. Why did the Chachamim said it? Why did they put it l'chatchilo to that? And he continues, emes take, even though the tainuk for Leib and the odem is for achil and shtiyah, but even though most people, the majority of people have their enjoyment comes from eating and drinking, which means achilas basar shtiyas yain, eating meat and drinking wine. This is over klal mit machriach. By me it is another reason for tainuk, but it doesn't mean that the ones who are in the minority should not have a different way of showing pleasure. For instance, those that have pleasure by fasting for tshuva. So why that's not called tiny? We see that someone wants to fast for tshuva and he enjoys it. He can do that on Shabbos. So it's not only they said, well, since most people do it, have pleasure through food, you should have food. They said there's no other way, the exception of tainas cholim. But anything else, even though you enjoy it, it doesn't work. Why did the Chachamim make it that way? When there is no essential din of eating, there's essential din of tainig. And if you enjoy it some other way, why shouldn't you do it? Is there beer in them? So the explanation is like this. Teire mitzvahs are gegeben geworden zu Yidden, wie sie seien neshomas begufim davke. Teire mitzvahs are given to Yidden as they are neshomas in bodies. Was aveim yesh lochem, as it says in the Gemara, that when the Malachim asked Moshe Rabbeinu, as the Eibishter, why you're giving the Torah to the people? And the Eibishter told Moshe Rabbeinu to answer them. One of the things he said to them, how could it be given to you? You don't have a father and a mother. So Poshup Pshat is, it says in the Torah, honor your father and mother. It doesn't apply to you. But Chassidus explains a little bit different. The Torah was given to people who have bodies, that you have a father and a mother. That's what Matan Torah was. Torah was given. And the Tam der Reuf is, what's the reason for that? Why was the Torah given to only people with physical bodies? While the Tikkun was mitzvahs too, Nuf in the mention, because mitzvahs are supposed to accomplish some kind of tikkun. Tikkun means fixing something, accomplishing something on the person. The Chazal say, the mitzvahs are given to purify the people. So what part of the person do the mitzvahs have to purify? Needs to live the neshama la'atzma. It's not for the neshama itself. For the neshama atzma, it's tikkun. The neshama doesn't need fixing. It's brought on the Tanya, take it from Chaim, that the neshama doesn't need fixing. So the Torah mitzvah is given to fix. To fix what? Not to live them goof. The goof, the body, which is physical, that has to be fixed, because physical is not godly. So you have to fix it. As der goof und Yidden, that also the body of a Yid soll werden tzoruf, should be purified, und durchgenommen mit kedushas mitzvahs, and absorbed with the holiness of the mitzvah. So the Torah mitzvahs were given for the body, given to people with bodies. From that we understand. So then, when the Torah says, a Shabbos or the Yontev darf sein einig bei Yidden, the Shabbos and Yontev a Yid has to have pleasure. And by Shabbos, it also says the word lachem. In order 25, the Rabbi says that the Gemara adds also Shabbos. Everyone also agrees you have to have lachem. So when the Torah says lachem, that you have to, the Torah was given that you have to enjoy Shabbos, meint es nicht, as nur the Neshama soll haben Tainuk, Ruchni von Yom Shabbos. It doesn't mean that the Neshama should have pleasure from Shabbos, spiritual pleasure, because it does have to be, not only that. Part of 26, the Rebbe says, because it says by Shabbos also, Hashem Elekecha. Just like by Yontiv, the reason you have to have part to Hashem is because it says, Shabbos also Hashem Elekecha. So Shabbos certainly you have to have pleasure in Yonim Ruchniim. But it's not only for Yonim Ruchniim. Since the Torah was given to people in Gufim, the Shomas in Gufim, the pleasure has to be not only in Ruchnias, Nur their goofs will feel non einig the fun das Yom Shabbos or the Yom Tov. The body should feel good about that this is Shabbos and enjoy the Shabbos and Yom Tov. But not only was it given, also that the body should feel it. The Iker Amachufen for the mitzvah is dafke the Latzar of them goof. The main purpose is that the body should be absorbed with Kedusha and be purified. So when the Eibush gave the mitzvah, any mitzvah, but in this case we're talking about the mitzvah having pleasure on Shabbos and Yom Tov, it was given that the body should have pleasure. Now, the time since naturally, which is part of the body, nature of the body, is that you have pleasure from eating and drinking. That's why the Torah says, which bring out what the Torah wants, is that what's the obligation? That you should have pleasure on Shabbos Yom Tov through eating. Only through eating you accomplish that Shabbos in the tzaref, that the pleasure of Shabbos purifies. Purifies what? It goes into the body. Physical food is what goes to the body. So here, by eating it, since naturally that's what you enjoy, and the mitzvah is that the body should enjoy, and naturally that's what you enjoy. So Hashem, the Torah wants that you should eat food your body should enjoy it. But other types of pleasure, like fasting, because you want to do tshuva or anything else, so you also have pleasure. It's not a pleasure for the body. The body doesn't enjoy it. Since you have a neshama, so that's a pleasure for the neshama. It's not a pleasure for the body. Now, and even if he accomplished, he worked on himself and he came to a level as ein guf soll nicht feeling concerned from the time is that the body should not feel pain by not eating, by fasting. So the body also feels it. Or the nochma, you could be even more. Der guf feels like the fun was the neshama tainug, that you could be at such a high level that even your body feels tainug. The body feels good because the neshama has tainug, and we find such a thing that the body should be affected by a pleasure that's not bodily. We know it says a posik, and there's a story in the Gemara that if you hear good news, it makes your body fat. The Gemara actually tells a story that when Yevech Namazaka came to the general and he told him, you're going to be the king, you're going to be the Caesar, and they got in the middle of the conversation, he got the news that they appointed the Caesar died and they appointed him to be, and then he tried to take off his shoe. He couldn't take off his shoe. Why? Because his body grew from the good. The Gemara calls the pasuk Shmua Tei. The good news makes your body bigger. The body enjoys it and becomes fatter. So we do see that something. This was not a gashmas. He didn't eat. He just heard good news. So we see something abstract. It's not godly, but it's something abstract, ruchni, and it has effect on the body. So you could have a yid that fasting on Shabbos to do tshuva. The body he made it so that the body enjoys it. It's not that the body on its own enjoys this ruchnisdike thing. That the body has pleasure from good news, or from ataynes or from fasting. It's only because the neshama controls, rules over the body, whether that's his nature or he worked on himself. So it has in control and makes the body feel it, but it's because he controls the body against the nature of the body. Even a holy body that's purified, the body on its own is not. The body is a bodily thing which enjoys food. You could work on yourself and overcome that. So it's not that the body on its own has that enjoyment. Und der Rebbe, Torme, Shabbos, v'yontev, mit fast, nazat, keine tshuva ke'etzim. That's why Shabbos, you're not allowed to fast, this type of fast, which is tshuva or something like that. Afilu ben yesh le'tainik b'tainik zeh, even if he has pleasure with this fast. You have to enjoy Shabbos through eating and drinking. That is essentially on its own. The body on its own will enjoy food and drink. My time is a din, therefore the din is as a feel by tainas cholam b'Shabbos v'yontev. That even when you fast the tainas cholam b'Shabbos v'yontev, the Chachamim did allow it. Nevertheless, the din is as medar for them a kapor. You have to be forgiven. You have to do tshuva for it. The yes as motor them a vital given iker einik Shabbos, because you destroyed, you nullified by doing that the main part of einik Shabbos. And the Rebbe stresses the main, the word iker. Why? Because this is the main. The main part is the guf. And the guf on its own, the way the nature of the guf is, this is the natural, normal way, is through food. And if you do it another way, even the Chomim felt that they want to allow you, a person shouldn't feel bad, whatever, so they allowed it, but you still did something not the real Einik Shabbos. So now we understand the whole what the mitzvah Einik Shabbos is, what the reason for having to eat and drink, etc., etc. Yes, Leimer Adoseh, the Tamal Derech Remes of them. This Rebbe says we could say is the reason, not in Pshat, but in Remes. This hints was for something of them. Was Agamas in Shulchan Aruch werden gebracht in Zugab zu eines Cholam. Noch Falmans is do I had any test not to fast on Shabbos. Even in Shulchan Aruch, the example given that you're allowed to fast on Shabbos is not only if it's Tainus Cholam. It gives other examples, like we mentioned it before. For instance, if you have tsar from eating, well, those is farim aneinik, so they allowed. The Rebbe says, by Adam shachilam azekislei, like by a person that eating hurts him, then he enjoys not eating. Or the eine of us is eingewöhnt to fasten bekolim, somebody that is used to fasting every day, and eating Shabbos will be tsar, will be pain, because the moment you change your style, your schedule, automatically you start feeling over. So if you fast every day, to not fast on Shabbos will hurt him. So in Shulchan Aruch, this is brought down as an example. These are examples when you are allowed to fast on Shabbos. For deswegen wird in Shas, but in Gemara, der Mon befeirish, what's written clearly as an example, blaze that had for Tainus Cholam. The only example given is if you fast at Tainus for a dream. Was der Fun is verstandig. From that, since that's the example, so we understand that the Yesod Hete from the Aleph that the reason why you are allowed to fast in other cases is the din for Tainus Cholam. It's all based on Tainus Cholam. Since the Gemara gives that example, and from there we learn out others, that means that essentially, not in Pshat, that the source, the foundation, and the root why you're allowed to fast, the other reasons that the Shulchan Aruch gives, is because they're all included in the concept of Tainus Cholam. From them, from Tainus Cholam we learned. Rabbi didn't explain it yet. We'll get the explanation soon. But we learn out from Tainus Cholam as mitzvah Einik Shabbos v'yontiv is nit ken chiv achila farzich. From there we learn now that it's not a mitzvah to eat be'etzem because the mitzvah is of eating, nor to live the Einik Shabbos. The reason you have to eat because of the pleasure. And the Rebbe therefore, when the Rodem is mesanek for nitas and megmefast, and if the person enjoys not eating, you're allowed to fast. So it comes out that the reason why you're allowed to fast in other cases also is because it comes from the fact of Tainus Cholam. And from there we see that the mitzvah is not eating, because Tainus Cholam you don't eat, and nevertheless you're able to do it on Shabbos. But this is the source to the din. So doesn't explain anything yet. So one thing we established that the source of the din, that the mitzvah is not the eating, but the mitzvah is the pleasure, and therefore you have to eat because that's the normal pleasure, comes from the fact that you're allowed to have pleasure a different way, not by eating it, by Tainus Cholam, but it's all from Tainus Cholam. So the Rebbe says, you could say it like this: at the time was Chazal given to sagen, dem hette darf by Tainus Cholam. The reason why the Chachamim chose to give this hette that you're allowed to fast, so they chose the example of Tainus Cholam, kedei the mitzvah Ramazan, by that to hint at the mitzias hette from Tainus b'Shabbos, meis tam shiyeh, that when you are allowed to fast in Shabbos, whichever the case is, whatever the reason is, but you're allowed to. And automatically, what does that mean? That you're allowed to fast on Shabbos, whatever the reason is. You're in a situation which holds you back from enjoying eating and drinking. That's really, you should enjoy eating and drinking. But this case, the Chachamim allowed you, and that means that in this case, you will not enjoy the eating and drinking, you have a different enjoyment. So that concept, that comes, why is it that you will not enjoy the eating, but you'd rather enjoy not eating, comes because your situation could be classified as a dream, a spiritual dream, ruchni. And the Rebbe will explain to you what's a dream ruchni. Shina, when you're asleep, the helem, and it's the concealment, the golus, and it's the exile from the neshama beguf. The neshama is in the body, and the godliness is concealed. The ruchnius, the godliness is asleep, and it's in helem. It comes not only the spiritual, but physically we are in golus, and we have this concealment in the world. That's the reason why could come to a situation that a person should rather enjoy fasting than eating. And Reb explains what's a pshat. That's a cholam. It says in Teireh, in the Posuk it says that we are like in a dream that goes on Naras, Bovel, and Bovel when this was a golus. So Teireh explains. Now Reb explains As punkt vi acholam. Why do we compare Golos to a dream? It's just like a dream. The dream puts two opposites together. How does that happen? In the middle of by a dream, you could have two opposites. You could be laughing, crying minutes apart. You see things far apart. You see in a minute, you're here in Miami, let's say, you dream that you're in Miami. In a second, now you're in Chicago, you're in London. I mean, and it goes together, the two opposites. You can't be two places at the same time. In the dream, you could. And the reason is, during when you sleep, your seichel goes away. Only an imaginary chaos stays there. That's why that's able to happen, that you can have two opposites. That's Gashmisdik dream. This concept of this union of having two opposites because your seichel is not working properly could be in a ruchnistic way. As by Eden is mana golas. By Eden golas, as the same thing as Suliram Helam Hester from golas, because there is a concealment of golas. Just like we said, by a dream you're sleeping, and there's a concealment of your seichel. When you're in golus, it's like a dream. You're sleeping, and there's a concealment of the true understanding. It's possible that by a person should be two opposites. Ruchnisdike opposites. When you're davening, you could have an arousement to ruchnius, and you make real strong resolutions to do the right thing. And right after the davening, all this vergessen werden. You could be forgotten. So much as you could behave complete opposite before. That's called a spiritual dream, because you're sleeping, which means your seichel is not working, your true understanding is not working, because there's a concealment of godliness. So what we're saying here, as what the Rebbe is from bringing the Torah here, so this idea that a person could be in a level that he has to fast on Shabbos, and the Torah allows him to fast because of whatever reason, and he'd rather enjoy not eating than eating, you know where that comes from? Because he's in a dream. How is it possible by such a thing as in talk for Shabbos or the Yontiv, but on the day of Shabbos or Yontiv? The mitzvah is to eat and drink. So his body should hold him back from the proper pleasure. We said before that the proper pleasure is supposed to be eating. Why? Because since the Torah was given to the bodies, and that the body should be affected, and the body naturally is affected to enjoy is through eating and drinking. And here we have a person that he'd rather enjoy something else. You know why it is? Because there is a concealment of godliness, and he doesn't feel the truth of what the mitzvahs are. We're not talking about somebody who's doing the opposite of Torah Chas v'Sholem. Not a frumer Yid. He doesn't feel the truth of Torah mitzvahs. Somebody who tries to do everything according to the Torah. Still, a person like that is in a stage that you'd rather fast, meaning that, and he'd enjoy that more. That means his body in such a level cannot accept what the Torah wants, the tainig that the Torah wants you to have, that your body should really enjoy it. And how does this happen? It does not because in the level of cholam, hester hagolas, which is the concealment of the exile. And Istakayid was 50 Istakayid that does everything according to Torah. But zusammen damit is da hester. And at the same time, that we said there could be opposites. He does Torah, so that's one thing. And at the same time, he has a concealment, was there lost nit, doesn't allow that the pleasure of Shabbos should penetrate into him so far, the body should feel properly at Shabbos. So it's mamish like a dream, because on one hand he's a Shemer Shabbos and a Shemer Torah mitzvahs, and he's a great guy, and he has ruchnias, and at the same time his body doesn't allow him to have the real pleasure that the Torah wants, that the mitzvah of Einik Shabbos should penetrate into the body. The body doesn't allow, the body doesn't enjoy it. Then by invol given there has to need, then by invol there has to need given, if this by this person this concealment wouldn't have existed. Well, there by katsheya from zman. So the fact that the Eibishter made Shabbos holy, like it says in the Seres Adibris, but dosi the yom Shabbos was dosi the yom Shabbos or the Yontiv, the katsheya of the time, which is the holiness of Shabbos or Yontiv, would have paled of sein guf, would have had an effect on his body as heinz or yehom time. Today, because it's Shabbos and Yontiv, and it's a mitzvah to have a pleasure from Shabbos Yontiv, it would have made that he should enjoy Achila. It could be other days of the year. Taka, he doesn't. He doesn't enjoy food and he fasts for good reasons. And that's okay. But that's not Shabbos. But on Shabbos, Shabbos would have had an effect on him. He should enjoy through food. Well, Shabbos is a todas bring time. Shabbos brings pleasure in everything, all the way down to the body, and he doesn't have it. So that shows that he has a dream. He's has a concealment, which is a contradiction between the two. So really, shouldn't be such a thing. Shouldn't be such a thing that a person should not eat on Shabbos or Yom Tov. Because he has to. So how is there a din that you are allowed to have a tainas cholim? But the Torah finds advice and helps everybody, even to a person that's in a dream, that things are confusing. You could do like this in a minute, and then you don't have pleasure. Your body doesn't have pleasure from the way the Torah wants, doesn't penetrate into the body. So the Torah finds an advice and helps even people like that who are in a dream. The state of Torah, it says, it says that the Torah makes you realize the difference between impurity and purity. That means Torah tells you, clarifies things for you. Things could be mixed up. Tome and Tome and Torah, purity and impurity, are two opposites. If I was there for an onkel to Torah, if some opposites say, why do you need the Torah to tell you how to separate and make it differentiate between them? The answer is, about the Torah, it won't see you off from Torah. Torah, and whatever Torah helps, whenever Torah helps, is even giving advice and helping somebody who is in a level of a dream, and therefore a dream makes you confuse two things, and person could be on the level of a dream that he confuses. Torah lowers itself. Even to a guy like that, a person like that, and he's mavdum and atoma v'toina separates, helps you separate and clarify what stoma v'toina shouldn't have that dream. And in the order 43, the Rabbi even gives an example, brings in Tanya that the Torah lowered itself so much, lowers about dispute between two people. For instance, two people come to Bezdin, Mishnah, they're both holding the talis, one says it's mine, one says it's mine, one of them is lying. And the Torah lowers itself to discuss even about people who lie, because the Torah wants to make it clear what's right and what's wrong, so it lowers itself there. The Riber Torah zu dem, was zu leben Hester in sein Guf, is ein Guf im Nehem Achille Shabbos Yom Tov. Therefore, the Torah lowers itself even to somebody who's in a dream, and b'meila, because the Guf is a concealment of godliness by him, and therefore stops him from this concept of enjoying Shabbos Yom Tov through a physical thing because it didn't penetrate his body. That's what the Torah allows him to fast. But after all, at this point, this is his level. So the Torah says, because it's this your level, and you have to enjoy Shabbos Yom Tov, Torah says ahead that you're allowed to. So be'etzem it shouldn't, and you're allowed to. And that's the reason why the source of this idea that you're able to have Tainik on Shabbos from something else like fasting comes from Tainas Cholam. Because the whole reason we got to this is because you're in the dream. You're in the dream, and that's why there's a possibility that you don't enjoy Shabbos Yom Tov through eating. And that's where the Torah is matir, because the Torah wants to help you too. So all the other places when the Torah was matir, it's all based on the heter of Tainas Cholam. That because you're in a Cholam, the Torah allowed you to fast, because in your level, because you're in the dream and you confuse things, because of the confusion that you have, that things are not so clear, they're like a dream, the Torah allowed, so every other thing is the same way. This will explain the difference between Shavuos and all other Shabbos Yom Tov, because we started by saying every Shabbos Yom Tov, the bottom line is you're allowed to fast at Tainas Cholam. Shavuos, you're not allowed. What's the difference? The Chidush and the Rizgalus Halakis B'Shas Matan Torah L'Gava the Andere Giluim in the Me'adim Izmanim is the difference between the godly revelation at the time of Matan Torah compared to the other revelations that happen in different times, different Yom Tov, different times. The difference is about Matan Torah, das Durgenommen the ganze Brie. By Matan Torah, whatever Gilui was there, the revelation of godliness, penetrated into the whole creation. The estate, like it says in Tikkun Eseh and quotes in Tanya, Ader Keil von Matan Torah zur gehört von alle Dalle Druches Meilo Mata. The voice of Hashem when he said Aseres Adibris was heard from all four corners of the world and from up and down. That means the whole world felt it. Even animals, says a bird didn't sing and the ox didn't make its noises. The world was quiet because it was absorbed with what Matan Torah was. Noch mehr, it goes even more. Der Kol von der Aseres Adibris is niklet geworden, a vielen dem Däme vom Welt. Begerete mal Barucha. The Rebbe spoke once in a different Luch, the Sichas Chedik Daled, Parashat Veschanan explains, it says one of the things about Matan Torah that happened, there was no echo. And the Rebbe has the Shaila, if naturally it should have an echo, why didn't it have an echo? You could say, well, it was a miracle. Why would Hashem do a miracle for no reason? Well, who cares if it would have an echo? And the Rebbe says it wasn't a miracle. Since Matan Torah, the words of the Torah, of the Eibishter by Matan Torah, penetrated into everything, that's why it didn't have an echo. Where does an echo come from? When you make noise and there's something blocking the noise from continuing, it bounces back and makes an echo. Just like when you throw a ball at the wall, it bounces back. So certain places, when the noise can't be absorbed in the wall, it bounces back. By Matan Torah, everything the Eibishter said was absorbed into the physical world. The Rebbe said, like I said, in the daimim, in the inanimate objects, like I spoke before, that is in Lekutei Sichos Chelik Daled, der Father is nicht given kein Baskol for them call for Aseres Adibros. That's because there was no echo. So by Matan Torah was something special, that whatever special revelation of God in Matan Torah went into everything, all the way down into the lowest level, into the walls, into daimim. Those their father by Matan Torah. Why was it like that Matan Torah? Because by Matan Torah given this galus from Atzmas and Husalein. Matan Torah was the revelation of the essence of Hashem. Was hat sich keviyachal reingegeben in Torah? Hashem, so to speak, put himself, his who, which part of him, his essence into the Torah. Like the Gemara says, the word Anochi, the word Anochi, which is the beginning, the first word of the 10 Commandments of Aseres Adibros, which is the beginning of Matan Torah. The word Aleph Nun Chof Yud is a Rosh Tevis, is an abbreviation of the words Ano Nafshik Sovis Yehovis. I, myself, so simple pshat is I, myself, wrote it and gave it. Siddur Taiches, it doesn't mean that. It means I wrote myself in, gave myself in, myself. Who's the I? Anochi Mishanechi. When it says Anochi, that's the essence of Hashem. When it says Hashem's name, it's a certain level. A name is a description. It describes a certain level. The way Hashem, Mashal Havaya shows the way Hashem has pity, and then Elikim, the way Hashem has din, judgment, etc., etc. It shows a certain aspect of Hashem's revelation. Anochi, I is I. That's beyond any. It says in Zohar, it's beyond any name, beyond any description. That's the essence of Hashem. Atzmas Alein, the essence of Hashem Alein says, Anochi, the Eibishter says, I, my essence. As gitzich harayin ksovis yovis, I put myself in, I wrote myself in, I gave myself. Zayin atzmas, he said nafshi. Ano nafshi, I myself, nafshi means my nefesh, my essence. I put myself in the Torah. Vival does that is their blig vulamiti. Since by Matan Torah came from atzmas, the Eibishter himself, and the Eibishter is the true infinity. There were a lot of levels. Ein Sof, all the levels is called Ein Sof. It's infinite, but this is the real infinity. Is since this is the revelation of Shavuos of Matan Torah, in the Toki North was on his scholars der Lanka. So therefore, it's not possible there should be a place that his revelation should not reach. But the Farak Matan Torah, and that's why Matan Torah was absorbed, penetrated into everything, because the real Blig Vul, there is no stop for it. Other things, as much as they're Blig Vul to a certain degree, but there's certain things it doesn't come to. But the real Blig Vul, there's no stop for it. So the Eibishter Gilui of Matan Torah penetrated into the whole world, into everything. And that's why we said before there was no maskal and there was no echo, because the Torah, the words of Hashem penetrate into the world. When the mitzvah is I move in the town, this will explain the reason for what's matonit fasten containers cholim b'chag Shavuos, why you can't fast in Shavuos, not even the tainas cholim. And the reason given, the father does is yem shenit nebetera, the day the Torah was given. And we asked the question at the beginning of the Sikha, Torah is ruchni, so we should have to do something spiritual. It would make sense. Rebbe didn't say this, but it should make sense if it would say that on Shavuos, everyone agrees you have to learn Torah for an hour, no matter what, because you have to show that you appreciate the Torah. It's a spiritual present Eibishter gave us, so we show our appreciation by a spiritual thing. Why is it, he asked, that to show that we appreciate the Torah, you have to eat food? And the reason given is because the Yem Shanit no Torah, the Torah was given. And the word nitno, the Rebbe Order 52, means, the Gemara says in Baba Basra, if you give a present, call on Nesim buying you off a Nesim. You give it, there's a question if something was included in the present. So by a sale, sometimes we say he only meant to sell this, not anything that's in it. But if it's a present, we always assume that he meant it, because if you give everything. So the same thing with Eibush. The reason is, why is it that we have to eat? The explanation will be because this is a day that the Torah was given. Since Shavuos, the day the Torah was given, but dosa durgenumen the ganze Brie, and that penetrated into the whole creation, no limitations. The simcha from Chag HaShavuos is built in with. So the simcha, the enjoyment and the happiness that you show that you appreciate it, has to be a simcha without a limit. Bizas is only sein cannot by mention, whereas the greich need the simcha from Matan Torah. There shouldn't be any place in the person that the simcha doesn't reach. So if you're going to fast and have all kinds of timing that you have for the pleasure for spiritual things, but your body doesn't. And even if you cause that, the body should also, but it's not the body itself. It has to penetrate into the body that even the body enjoys. By other Yom Teim, it's not connected to the essence of Hashem. It's connected to the revelations of Hashem, the light of Hashem. There's a possibility there could be a concealment at certain places it didn't reach, and you have a dream, and the dream means that certain places there's a concealment, like we said before. Which holds back and covers up on the Simcha Yonta, that your body, you could be in a level that your body is not able to receive that inyan, that gilu, and therefore your body doesn't enjoy it. So if that's your level, so the Torah said, okay, so then enjoy it through spiritual things. But the simcha from Torah is has to have the simcha, this happiness and enjoyment for Torah. There is no concealment. It penetrates into every level. All over. I feel in the madreges, even at the lowest levels. There's the feeling that we are enjoying, we're happy, and we accept the concept of Matan Torah. And since it has to penetrate into everything, that's what Shavuos Matan Torah is. Therefore, it comes down a feeling. It comes on even the world of dreams. It comes on all the way low in achile, in eating. As I feel was as if someone has a dream that generally voltos neither lost as ein guf and generally having such a dream is possible that it would cause you not to have any pleasure from eating, since you know that you've had a bad dream. And the way to get rid of it is by eating the same day, so you wouldn't enjoy. By fasting the same day, so you wouldn't enjoy eating. It's possible you're in that level. But tutu, the simcha from Shavuos, but the simcha of Shavuos accomplishes, by even by a person like that, there's a simcha that the simcha should be in such a way that every part of him should feel it. Because he enjoys the day the Torah was given. And we said before, nitno means given that the etzem is there, so there's bleak wool. That's why there's no way you could not eat. On Shavuos, you have to eat no matter what, because the concept of Matan Torah, which is the gilui of the etzem of the Eibush, would penetrate it into the whole creation, every bit without any limitations. You have to enjoy it also without any limitations, even all the way down physically in your body. That's why Hakal Meidim Atzeret Bin Lachem at Shavuos, everyone agrees that you have to eat.